All right, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Welcome to another episode of Illinois Valley Community Broadcast. Thanks for joining us today. This is Ernest of Gaia here, and I just wanted to go over. Took the weekend off of kind of broadcasting and putting some stuff together, working on some more in-depth YouTube videos over the weekend to address some other topics, those found here in the permaculture flower. But let's get started. So I just wanted to go over today. We got a new moon tomorrow. Not really a whole lot of local information that's changed today, other than the stay-at-home order being issued yesterday. But there were some interesting things on Facebook and Twitter. And I also thought, since a lot of legislative stuff happened over the weekend, that I would show some links so folks can, verify some of the information that's going around that you hear in all these YouTube videos and social media posts. So with that, let's get started. Twitter, as I said, not a whole lot found going on Twitter today. Mostly people were just kind of griping about the stay-at-home order, or folks were sharing information about social distancing and other health tips. There are, let's see. So what I do is I usually come over to Twitter, and in the search bar, I'll put in Illinois Valley or Oregon and do my search. And then I always go to usually the latest posts. A lot of times when you're using hashtags or search terms that aren't very popular, you don't get up-to-date real-time posts in the top category. That being said, there were definitely some couple cool hashtags that I found. And so one of the hashtags that people are actually using is the Oregon lockdown hashtag. Of course, Oregon is not on lockdown. However, that is the hashtag being used to basically, describe any kind of restriction of movement. So we did get the stay-at-home order, and I'll get a little bit into later what exactly that means. And give you some information about that. One of the interesting things on the Oregon lockdown is a video. I believe I posted a link to it. But there's a video here from Hermione. It shows basically the day-to-day symptoms of what coronavirus feels like. And basically, you either need a respirator or you don't. And a lot of folks apparently end up feeling pretty bad from this. So that was a very, very eye-opening, very well put together video. The other thing on Twitter that I came across, and I put the link here as the link to all these posts in the description of the video. But here at govstatus.egov.com, it gives a clear description of what the executive stay-at-home order is, what describes what essential needs are, and tells you what's allowed, what's not allowed. Also gives you some links to some other resources on this website. And not sure if this is an actual government website or not, but it does have quite a bit of resources for Oregon. So keep an eye on that. Again, Hermione on Twitter. Other interesting hashtag, and this really doesn't relate to Oregon very much, except that there's a lot of people in Oregon using it, which is how I found it, but it's hashtag quarantine life. And if you need a laugh, then this is the hashtag to check out. Lots of folks posting creative stuff, silly stuff, stuff of their pets, memes, conspiracy theories, toilet paper jokes. It's endless and super creative. So lockdown now is also a popular hashtag. So this is how I use Twitter and social media to kind of stay informed of different trends and actual events that are happening in society. So if we move on to Facebook, so again, not a whole lot of new information today or over the weekend. Mostly folks just getting acclimated or struggling to acclimate to, not being out and about all the time. But part of the stay-at-home order in Oregon is that all the state parks are closed, even though this has got to be one of the best places to maintain your social distancing, right? Like the beaches. But folks are definitely talking about what's going on in the community or sharing their feelings of how things in general. Some stores are out of things or hard to get right now, so there's definitely conversations on some of these Facebook groups about people that need things, want things, or have extra things, or get people food. The We're Hiring Josephine County Facebook group does have a couple job postings and caregiver postings. So folks are looking for a job. I definitely recommend checking that out. If folks have a job, come and post it in there if you're looking for somebody nearby that can help you. One of the other interesting posts. So one of the things that are going on in the local government, of course, is that there are debates and local elections that were coming up and planned and are no longer allowed. So folks are discussing and trying to figure out how to have some kind of online debates for folks with some type of moderator. So lots of interesting discussions, and Cascadian BioRegionalism group had an article, really good article, on how bioregionalism can be used to kind of regenerate the ecosystem that surrounds and is integrated with cities. So it's a nice little article there for folks wanting to learn a little bit more about bioregionalism. And I included a link in the description to this article on Medium, so that folks can find it and not have to go to Facebook. So some of the interesting things that happen nationally that is not being discussed very well, does not really include a discussion from the working class. But at Congress.Gov, you can track the legislation and the bills that they are kind of, passing. The Families First Response Act, the Preparedness Response Appropriations Act, the EARN Act has been passed, the USA Freedom Reauthorization, laws have been changed about paid sick days and health emergencies, Healthcare Worker Protection Act. There's lots of things getting passed right now. And we really don't know who it is writing all this stuff. And it's going to take a few years before we find out who actually benefits from some of this. But, this is the place to go if you want to track and kind of monitor some of the legislation that's going on. One of the interesting things about this website is that you can see the bills and the stages that they're in. So you can see if the bill has been introduced, if it's gone to the House and been passed, if it's been passed in the Senate, if it's been passed by the president and becomes law. And of course, this weekend, there was a failure to pass a particular bill that, basically would have provided a lot of relief for corporations and banks, and really only minimal assistance for the working class. And if you would like to watch on the PBS NewsHour YouTube channel, they do have they've been showing the Senate and House floor things, and so they've actually been showing some of the debates that have been going on the Senate floor. So yeah, I don't know how bored you got to be to watch that, but it is there if you want to know what's really going on. And if you want to really know what's going on, you can also go to the federalreserve.gov website. Now, the Federal Reserve is not a government organization, and it's not a corporation. It's actually the only institution in the United States that doesn't need, except for maybe the military, I guess that's the Department of Defense, but it's actually an economic entity that's not required to make a profit and not required, or nothing bad can happen to it if it doesn't make a profit. So the Federal Reserve can continually go into it's basically where the assets go when the federal government bails out banks and corporations. Then those assets that were bought by the Fed moves to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. And then after the corporations or banks recover, or the ones that do, they then get to buy back those assets at a discount, and they never really get penalized for the mistakes that they made that created all the bad assets to begin with. So the Federal Reserve is actually one of the most transparent organizations in the country, even though it's probably one of the most obtuse and abstract organizations. They almost give you too much information. Right. So that's the Fed. Another important thing to take note of is some of the changes that have been going on in Homeland Security. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Administration. And one of the things that they decide is exactly what are the critical infrastructure sectors that are essentially deemed essential. And so there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors. Now these are the American interests that our military is there to protect in our nation and across the globe, right? And it's the chemical sector, commercial facilities sector, communication sector, critical manufacturing, dams, the defense, emergency services, energy, the financial services sector, right? And that's what they're trying to save right now. And one of the interesting things that came out of the task force briefing today from President Trump is not just that there's more numbers and updates in logistics and that there's progress in beginning to get the states kind of the stuff that they need, but Trump in the, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours that he was, the task force was there, he tried really hard not to say the words financial crisis. It was a virus crisis, a health crisis, anything other than a financial crisis. However, a couple of the reporters asked him some probing questions, and he said the words financial depression. And then quickly, moved on to other things. But in essence, what came out of the task force update was that in 2 days we will know more. And he did talk about the strength of the dollar and the kind of downsides to a strong dollar. However, he blatantly lied about the shape of Wall Street prior to the threat of coronavirus. So the blatant lies on public television, YouTube, across the world about the financial shape of Wall Street. We really got to be careful about the type of legislation that they're passing and how this may affect some of the things in our local area. But just to give you a quick idea of like how bad the markets actually were prior to the coronavirus, this chart here shows what's called the Buffett indicator. And this green line, the blue line is the stock market and the Wilshire total stock market. And the green line is GDP. And when the total market gets to be in a certain ratio with GDP, it means that there's too much gambling in the stock market. Things are over leveraged. The prices are overvalued, and there's eventually a tipping point and a crash and a recession. So we can see right here around 2000 that the value of the stock market rose way over GDP, comes crashing down. Again in 2008, we get a high valuation of the stock market relative to GDP. We don't really fix what was going on in 2000 and the late 90s, and we have another crash and a recession. And then since 2008, with all the QE and the Fed buying, printing trillions of dollars, stock market just does great. And this is what Trump is talking about. The stock market's great. It's been doing fine, except that it's way overvalued compared to GDP. Now, maybe that just looks good, but you can actually go to TradingView and kind of chart this yourself. And, what you see here is that after each crash, we went basically down to 10 trillion for the total actual value of, the whole stock market, right? And so right now it's at 30 trillion, which means a drop down to 10 trillion would be 2/3, more than half of everything in the stock market. So since, what is it? Essentially, basically, what is it? Yeah, if we went back to 2000, we have the potential right now to lose all the wealth that was supposedly created since 2000, the last 20 years. And of course, you can chart this yourself by checking out TradingView, but you can see what actually happened. So again, over here on the left, you can see that the Dow Jones went up, came crashing down, it went up again in 2008, came crashing down, and it's been on a steady rise as the government prints more money. And it was about ready to crash at any given time. However, because of the coronavirus, we had the sharpest crash in history. And they are scrambling right now because essentially the whole third of, ever since Trump got into office, all the money that everybody's made, they've lost it. And they are scrambling to keep this line and hold above 2015, 2016 levels. But once we go below 15,000, it could drop all the way down below 10,000 really quickly. And we can see another steep drop, and all these politicians losing about 2/3 of their wealth. Bad for them. Maybe we don't care. But in the long run, that means that anybody that's actually has a house right now will probably lose 40 to 60% of the value of their house, and they will not see those prices change in another 30 to 50 years. So lots of fun stuff to look forward to. Actually, much better in the Valley than out there in Washington, D.C. So come on into the Facebook groups. Check out the links in the description. Join Illinois Valley Transition Telegram and share what's going on in your neck of the mountains. Thank you and have a good day.